Have you ever noticed how the word discipline already feels exhausting before you even try? Not after failing, not after quitting. Before. Just hearing it can trigger a subtle reaction. Your shoulders tense. Your breath shortens slightly. It's the same feeling you get when you open your laptop, stare at the screen, and suddenly feel the urge to check your phone, even though you haven't done anything yet. That reaction isn't laziness. It's memory. Your nervous system doesn't respond to ideas, it responds to associations. If discipline entered your life through pressure, criticism, or self-disappointment, your body learned that lesson long before your mind could argue otherwise. Think about how discipline usually appears, rarely on good days, rarely when you feel calm and capable. It shows up after guilt, after procrastination, after that quiet inner sentence. I really need to fix myself. So discipline becomes linked to punishment, not structure, not support. Punishment. That's why even planning feels heavy. Writing a to-do list already feels like pressure. Setting a routine feels like bracing for impact, not like creating stability. Your body isn't resisting effort. It's preparing for what effort has meant before, and until that association changes. Discipline will keep feeling like something you have to survive, instead of something that could actually help you breathe. At some point, discipline stopped being about organizing your life and quietly became a judgment about your character. You can see this in how you talk to yourself. You don't say, "This system isn't working." You say, "I'm weak." You don't say, "This routine doesn't fit me." You say, "I lack discipline." That shift is subtle, but brutal. Imagine this scene. It's late at night. You're lying in bed, phone in hand. You told yourself you'd sleep earlier. You didn't. And instead of adjusting tomorrow, your mind jumps straight to the verdict. Here I go again. Discipline in that moment doesn't feel like a tool you can use. It feels like a sentence being read aloud. Thinkers like Michel Foucault warned that modern discipline often stops being external and becomes internal. We turn into our own supervisors, watching, correcting, punishing, even when no one else is there. So discipline no longer arrives to help you move forward. It arrives to explain why you failed. And when discipline is tied to shame, the nervous system doesn't hear guidance. It hears threat. The body tightens. The mind resists. Not because structure is bad, but because judgment is exhausting. That's why routines feel cold. Why consistency feels harsh. Why structure feels like something you have to earn by suffering first. Because discipline stopped being something you use and became something you're constantly being measured against. Most people don't avoid effort because they don't care. They avoid it because, at some point, effort stopped feeling neutral. Picture this. You sit down at the table, open your laptop, and the screen is blank. You know what you need to do. It's not complicated. And yet, before you even start, there's a strange heaviness. Your body leans back. Your hand reaches for the phone almost by itself. Nothing bad has happened yet, but your system is already reacting. Effort often became linked to moments like this. Trying and being corrected. Trying and feeling behind. Trying and realizing it was never enough. Over time, the body learns a quiet rule. Trying leads to tension, and the body is very good at remembering what once hurt. This is why just push through rarely works. The reaction happens before thought, before motivation, before logic. Your system isn't asking whether the task is important. It's scanning for discomfort it has learned to avoid. From the outside, this looks like procrastination. From the inside, it feels like self-protection. You're not avoiding the task itself. You're avoiding the familiar emotional cost that usually comes with trying. The pressure, the self-criticism, the tight chest that appears halfway through. Effort didn't become difficult because you failed. It became difficult because your body learned that effort was where things started to go wrong, and it learned to step back before the impact. What makes all of this so confusing is that, consciously, you want to change. You make plans. You understand the consequences. You genuinely mean it. And yet, when the moment arrives, something else seems to take over. Think about the morning alarm. The night before, You were convinced. Tomorrow I'll wake up early. It felt sincere. But when the alarm rings, there's no debate, no philosophy, just a hand reaching for the snooze button. Almost automatically, the decision happens before you can even argue with it. This isn't hypocrisy. It's architecture. Your mind isn't a single voice trying to sabotage you. It's more like a room with multiple speakers, each reacting to a different timeline. One part of you thinks in months and years, another part thinks in seconds. Comfort now, relief now, escape now. The faster system doesn't ask if something is good for your future. It asks one question only. Does this reduce discomfort in this moment? And because it reacts first, it usually wins. That's why intentions feel honest at night and irrelevant in the morning. Not because you lied to yourself, but because different parts of your mind were in charge at different moments. Once you see this, something softens. The problem was never a lack of desire. It was assuming there was only one version of you making decisions, when in reality, there never was. When things don't change, most people reach for the same solution. They try harder. They tighten the rules. They become stricter. They decide that this time they'll be tougher with themselves. Think about an ordinary day. You spend hours making small decisions. What to answer, what to ignore, what to postpone, what to deal with immediately. By the time you finally sit down to do something important, your body is already tired, not physically, mentally. And then you blame yourself for having no energy left. Forcing yourself does work. Briefly, for a few days, sometimes a few weeks, but it almost always collapses the same way. Sudden exhaustion, loss of interest, and that familiar thought, I can't keep living like this. That's because pressure doesn't create stability. It creates endurance, and endurance has a limit. When discipline is built on force, your system starts counting the time until it can stop. Relief only comes when you quit. So the brain learns something very efficiently. Stopping feels good. That's why every attempt at being more disciplined ends in the same cycle: intensity, control, resistance, and then collapse. Not because you lack commitment, but because your body never agreed to these terms. Force doesn't fail because you're weak. It fails because it teaches your system that discipline is something to escape from, not something to rely on. There's a moment when you realize what's actually draining you. It isn't the task itself. It's the constant internal noise before the task. The endless deciding, the bargaining, the quiet question that repeats itself every time you try to start. Do I really have to do this now? That mental friction exhausts you long before any real effort begins. Picture a sink full of dishes. When there's no clear rule, you keep negotiating, now or later, after this video. After I rest a bit, the decision lingers, follows you around, and takes up space in your head. The task feels heavier than it actually is. This is where discipline can change its role. Psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott described the idea of containment, a structure that doesn't control or punish, but holds things together. When discipline works like containment, it removes the negotiation. The question disappears. There's no debate to win. It's like having a riverbank. The water isn't being pushed, it's being guided. Without that edge, it spreads everywhere and becomes shallow and exhausting. With it, the flow becomes steady. When discipline stops acting like force and starts acting like containment, the nervous system relaxes. Not because the work is easy, but because the uncertainty is gone. And for the first time, structure doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like support. Motivation feels exciting, but it's unreliable. Structure feels boring, until you notice how calm it makes you. Think about mornings when you don't know exactly how the day will start. You wake up and immediately begin deciding, should I check my phone? Get up now. Stay 5 more minutes. Nothing dramatic happens, yet you already feel slightly tense. The day hasn't begun, but your mind is already working. Now compare that to a morning with a simple structure. You wake up, your phone is not within reach. You get up, you make coffee, you sit in the same place. No inspiration is required, no motivation is summoned. The body just moves. That predictability is not restrictive, it's regulating. Your nervous system doesn't crave freedom the way your mind imagines. It craves knowing what comes next, when things are predictable. The system stops scanning for threats. It doesn't need to stay alert. It can finally settle. This is why unstructured time often feels heavier than busy time. Open space looks like freedom, but it quietly demands constant decisions. And decisions repeated all day drain you. Structure removes that drain before you even notice it. It doesn't ask how you feel. It doesn't wait for motivation. It simply creates a path the body can follow without resistance. And once that path exists, discipline stops feeling like something you have to summon. It feels like something that carries you forward. Most people think discipline is about making the right choice over and over again. But real discipline is about not needing to choose at all. Think about the moments you fail the most. It's rarely because you didn't know what to do. It's because you hesitated. You stood in front of the fridge, the phone, the bed, the open tab. And your brain started negotiating. And negotiation is where discipline dies. Every choice reopens the conflict inside you. This is why psychologists like Roy Baumeister pointed out that decision-making consumes mental energy, not because decisions are hard, but because each one reactivates the inner debate between comfort and effort. And after a few rounds, comfort always wins. Now imagine removing the debate entirely. The gym clothes are already laid out. The book is already open on the table. The phone is charging in another room. There is nothing heroic happening here. There is no self-talk, no mantra, no motivation speech in your head. There is simply less to decide. And your nervous system loves that. When options disappear, anxiety drops. When ambiguity shrinks, tension dissolves. The body no longer needs to stay alert, because the environment is doing the thinking for you. This is what behavioral scientists call choice architecture, but you don't need the term to feel it. You feel it when your day runs more smoothly, when actions happen without internal friction, when discipline feels less like pressure and more like protection. Discipline starts working the moment it stops asking you to be strong. It works when it makes weakness irrelevant. You like to believe your choices are internal, that discipline fails because you didn't try hard enough, that success happens when your mindset finally clicks. But most of your behavior is decided long before you think about it. Think about where your phone is right now. If it's on the table, face up, screen lighting up with every vibration, your attention is already partially gone. You haven't chosen distraction yet. But the environment has made that choice easier than focus. This is not weakness. It's conditioning. Behavioral economist Richard Thaler showed that humans almost always follow the path of least resistance, not the path of wisdom. Not the path of long-term benefit. The easiest path. The one that requires the least friction in the moment. Your environment quietly defines that path. If the snack is visible, you eat it. If the couch is closer than the desk, you sink into it. If the phone is the first thing your hand touches in the morning, your nervous system starts the day fragmented. You don't fail because you lack discipline. You fail because the environment votes against you before you even wake up. The most disciplined people are not stronger. They are simply surrounded by fewer traps. Their spaces are designed to support the behavior they want, not constantly challenge it. This is why changing the environment feels strange at first. It feels like cheating, like avoiding responsibility. But in reality, it is responsibility, taken seriously. Once the environment shifts, the internal battle fades. Discipline stops being a daily confrontation and becomes a quiet consequence of where you place your body, your objects, and your attention. Most people think discipline collapses because of laziness. But what actually breaks first is trust. Not trust in others. Trust in yourself. Every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," and don't, something subtle happens inside your nervous system. It learns that your words are unreliable, that your intentions don't mean safety or follow-through. Over time, your body stops mobilizing energy when you make promises, because it no longer believes you. Psychologist Erik Erikson spoke about basic trust as something formed in early life, but this dynamic doesn't end in childhood. It repeats daily in small, adult moments, especially in how you treat your own commitments. When your alarm rings and you hit snooze again and again, You're not just delaying a task. You're teaching your system that action is optional and avoidance is acceptable. Discipline doesn't disappear. It simply never forms on unstable ground. This is why grand goals don't restore discipline. They overwhelm a system that already feels unsafe. The nervous system doesn't respond to ambition. It responds to consistency, to signals that say, when I decide something, it happens, even if it's small. Rebuilding discipline is not about intensity. It's about credibility. It starts when your actions become predictable again. When your body learns that your word is no longer a suggestion, but a gentle certainty. In that environment, discipline stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like relief. There is a silent reason why people resist starting small. It doesn't feel meaningful. Waking up 10 minutes earlier, writing one paragraph, doing 5 minutes of movement. These actions seem insignificant compared to the life change you want. The mind dismisses them as pointless, but the nervous system sees something else entirely. Neuroscientist Donald Hebb famously summarized learning with a simple principle. Neurons that fire together wire together. What matters is not intensity, but repetition. The brain does not register big dreams. It registers patterns. When you start too big, you trigger threat. Your body senses risk, effort, uncertainty. The limbic system steps in and shuts things down. But when you start small, something different happens. The system stays calm. There is no alarm, no resistance, no need to escape. This is why small actions create momentum, while big ones create paralysis. Each small completion sends a message inward. This is safe. This is manageable. This does not require suffering over time. These signals accumulate and form a new internal expectation. Action without punishment. The mistake is thinking that discipline comes from heroic effort. In reality, discipline grows from the quiet confidence that you can begin without harm. Small starts are not about lowering standards. They are about teaching your nervous system that movement does not equal danger. Once that lesson is learned, expansion becomes natural, almost automatic at some point. Discipline stops feeling like effort, not because life becomes easier, but because resistance disappears. When discipline is built through fear, pressure, and self-judgment, every action feels heavy. You are constantly bracing for impact. The body tightens, the mind negotiates. Every task becomes a test of worth. This is why discipline collapses under stress. It was never stable to begin with. But when discipline is built through safety, structure, and trust, something unexpected happens. The nervous system relaxes. There is no internal argument before acting. No drama, no performance. Action becomes the default, not the exception. This is what philosopher Byung-Chul Han meant when he warned that modern productivity turns life into exhaustion. True discipline is not domination of the self. It is cooperation with it, a system where energy is conserved, not burned. Think about routines that actually last. Brushing your teeth, locking the door, making coffee. They don't require motivation. They don't require belief. They require no emotional labor. They happen because they belong. This is the final shift. Discipline as belonging, not punishment. When your systems are aligned, your environment supports you. Your trust is restored, and your actions are small but consistent. Discipline feels like rest, not because you are doing less, but because you are no longer fighting yourself.